Introducing Jim Karol and Friends. Jim is an author, speaker, and mentalist turned memory expert and has performed at several USO tours working closely with our military and wounded warriors. Now taking his knowledge and skills to the podcast world along with some impressive friends, I'm pleased to introduce Jim Karol. Jim Karol and Friends is brought to you by Signal Relief, the drug-free pain relief patch. Please visit signalrelief.com and use our promo code MEMORY for an exclusive offer only for our Jim Karol and Friends listeners.
Hey, welcome to Jim Karol and Friends. My guest today is an amazing patriot, Colonel Cary Harbaugh. He served for 40-plus years in the military. He was the director of the U.S. Special Operations Command Warrior Care. He was the director of the Warrior Games in 2019. He served in Operation Just Cause, Desert Storm, Iraqi Freedom, Enduring Freedom. I mean, this guy has done more for our military in 40 years than I can't even imagine. He's just one of my dearest friends. Let's welcome Colonel Cary Harbaugh, everybody. So, Cary, what the heck has been up, buddy?
Hey, how are you doing? All sorts of things in life.
Yeah, no, it's things have been since the COVID. I'm just doing nothing but podcasts and virtual shows and things like that. And
yeah,
my last event, Cary, was down in D.C. I was with Mark, the general, the chairman's house. I was at the chairman's house with Mark Milley and Terry Bradshaw was there, and Gronkowski. Elaine Rogers brought me in for that USO stuff, and that was the last event I did. My gosh, that's been in March. So it's a little tough on a guy like me. I'm used to being out there. I was doing. I must have been at like 70 military bases in the last year, and I'm so used to being there in person and doing it virtually like we are now. It's cool, but it's better than being on just a phone call. But yeah, so it's been tough. It's been all virtual, but
a very weird year. Yeah, very weird. The same way. I made some trips for a couple of events. I was up recently in New Jersey at Trump Bedminster for a Move United thing where I was the keynote speaker at the close of the golf tournament. Played the golf tournament there with the guys, and then did a speech at the end of it. But it's really bizarre. I mean, I'd done another run to DC for a couple of things with a couple of foundations that I'm working with, but almost every event, because of the COVID social distance rules, golf's a little easier. We use golf, and I'm of course the chairman of the Special Ops Warrior Golf Foundation, but the golf we can do outside with social distance. So it's a little easier for those type events, but all the social aspects of it that follow, like, some sort of award dinner at the end and all that, you got to change it. It's just the nature of where it is right now. And it's still quite dangerous. I mean, we're obviously seeing a drop in the numbers of deaths when it comes to ratio, but it's still very, very dangerous.
Yeah, it's very, it seems really strange not, being isolated like this. I mean, I haven't been, it's amazing. I haven't been out of the state of New York since March. This is crazy.
Yeah.
I'm the guy that was flying every week, going to different states, different countries. And the last time I saw we were together was in Tampa at your event.
Yeah. At Warrior Games last year. Yeah. I know. Just really weird.
Yeah.
But good to see you thriving out there, even if you're having to do it from virtual, right?
Virtual, it's still different. It's what's really cool about it is, like, if you do a show for, like, the other day I was on with like 1,000 people. All right. Everybody has a ringside seat. So that's the good thing about it, the positive thing, but you can't reach out and touch, you know what I mean? It's a little, and a lot of people think, well, you're reading something in the back, or, it's hard to, do deception detection and tell if people are lying or telling the truth over a computer, because and I have these headphones. They think somebody's telling me stuff about them, and it's hard to do. It's just a little more difficult, but
maximizes the use of your skills. That's true. Now, I've done a number of podcast radio programs recently, all doing them via Zoom. Mostly here from my apartment, and that's. It's an odd way to do business. I've done one in studio recently, but even that, we were distant in the studio. It was a little weird. But and so, not be able to look each other in the eyes the same way.
So I was reading up a little about you because I know a lot about we've known each other a while, but I didn't know you were an alumni of Ohio State.
The Ohio State University. That is correct.
The Ohio State. Yeah. My gosh.
Yeah. I was commissioned through Ohio State. I also, oddly enough, did a stint as a ROTC instructor there too. So it's near and dear. I mean, I was a Pennsylvania boy. I was born in Pittsburgh, but Ohio became just a lot of my father's jobs took us into Ohio multiple times in my life. So it became the school, the connected school. And so, I was commissioned through them. Yep.
You
very proud Buckeye, and I'm a big Buckeye football fan, obviously.
How about a Steeler fan? You Steeler fan?
Born and raised. So I was born,
Pittsburgh
Steeler fan. My whole life. I mean, I have in my office, Franco Harris signed Steeler plate to me. I'm diehard Steeler fan. The whole life.
How about if the Steelers and the Tampa Bay would be in the Super Bowl? How about that? And that's at Tampa. That never happened.
That would be very cool. I think that would be very sad for the Buccaneers, and I love the Buccaneers, mind you, because I've got good friends there, all the way to the chief operating officer, Brian Ford, and I certainly cheer for the Buccaneers as the hometown team, but last time the Steelers came to town to play the Buccaneers, it wasn't pretty. And I don't think it'd be pretty in a Super Bowl either, but that's okay.
even with a Brady, it wouldn't work out.
Even with a Brady, yeah. And hey, Tom's having a terrific season. I mean, he's been up and down that game. The Saints games have not been pretty, but every other game he's played very well. So, I wish him the best. And he was always good to our wounded warriors. So, I have nothing but positive things to say about Tom Brady. But and he is truly the GOAT. I mean, there's no doubt about it. No matter how you measure it, it's not about more yards or more touchdown passes. It's about how you manage yourself, and his field generalship, I think, is the best in the game that's ever had.
Your career, man. I mean, when the last time I seen you at the Pentagon with Bill Chatfield, he brought me into your office. Every time I see you, and especially when you're dressed up in the military, you are like the most distinguished looking. You played a part. Boy, do you.
Well, thanks, Jim.
I'm serious. If I ever made a movie and I needed somebody to play the part of a general or a colonel, man, you'd be the first one. You you just look like you belong there. You have this look about you. And I've noticed that ever since. What was the first time I seen you? West Point. We were at West Point.
The 15 or 16 Warrior Games. That was the first time I met you.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate the comment. I've been a soldier a long time. It's 41 years. And so I'm comfortable as a soldier. One of the hardest things in retirement here is not doing that every day. I mean, I entered the service at 19. I left it at 60. So it was, from teenager to senior citizen, effectively. I mean, I'm eligible for at least free pie somewhere, right? And so it really is. I try to carry myself. I still carry myself as a soldier. I mean, it doesn't change. The ID card color changes. That's all. But I'm still Colonel Harbaugh in my mind, and in people that know me. I mean, they call me the Colonel around here, which is kind of neat. And I was one of the most senior colonels on active duty, if not the most, when I left, because I'd been extended beyond the 40-year mark. I had almost 12 years in grade as a colonel, which is a lot of years just to be a full colonel for 12 years. I was in a specialty that did not have really GO potential, Brigadier General potential. That isn't to say they would have selected me. I don't think that they'd have made that egregious of an error. But they, at the same time, it was a great rank to hold, and to hold for so long. And it was an honor to do that, and I try to comport myself that way. It was important to the people that I served that I could be that person.
Yeah, you had a lot of missions. You were Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Iraqi Freedom, and you were just about every event out there.
Yeah, I had a lot of fantastic, if you want to call them. Not all the adventures are fun, and many of them deal with a lot of injury and loss. But I did all the way back to Panama was really my first one, Just Cause, and then Desert Shield, Desert Storm, just kind of hit that sweet spot. But I'd been enlisted for almost 10 years before any of those had hit. I'd been an enlisted guy. Then I became an officer really December 87. So 1988, if you get down to it. And from 78 when I enlisted, and for my 10 years enlisted, I was in airborne and special ops units as, more of an operator type guy. And then when I moved into the officer ranks, then I moved rather quickly into the intelligence world and special operations. So I was working as an intelligence officer in various different roles and leadership roles and positions in the special ops community as I went up in rank. And then ultimately, when Admiral McCraven asked me in 2013 to take over the Warrior Care Program, the Wounded Warrior Program, known as the Care Coalition informally in special operations, to take care of the Wounded Warriors, the program had taken care of me. I got messed up in Africa on one of my missions, and it changed my life, at least from a health perspective. And so when he asked me to move into that role, which was greatest honor of my life, and then for the last 6 years of my service, a little over that, 5.5 is really what it was. I was the director of the Warrior Care Program for Special Operations, and that, of course, involved Warrior Games. That's how I got to meet you. Invictus Games, all that through all of those years, and through the transition of the Warrior Games, because it had been a more of a commercial activity, or at least commercially sponsored by Deloitte in the earliest days, and then DoD took it over. And then with Invictus Games with Prince Harry, I was at the first Invictus Games and all the Invictus Games that followed. So, and part of that, and part of setting those up, part of the role that I had as the SOCOM chief there. So it was pretty good deal.
Yeah, I remember it. Wow. And I think I've seen you, but I didn't know you that well at the Invictus Games. I think they were in Orlando at the time. That was the first time I think I've ever seen you in person. And we didn't know each other because we got to know each other later after at the Warrior Games, I believe. The Warrior Games came after West Point. Yeah.
I think so. I think we had a little bit of connection there at Invictus 2016, and then Warrior Games that followed. Because the Invictus 2016 was at Disney World at the ESPN Zone. Yeah, it was a phenomenal event, hosted by Ken Fisher and the Fisher House folks that do so much for the Warrior Games, Invictus Games, but really do just so much for our wounded warriors and families with the Fisher houses and all of their support. It's absolutely tremendous.
Ken, they're awesome people, Ken and Tammy and their foundation. It's just amazing. Yeah, I got involved with them, and that's how I got involved with everybody and meeting you. Yeah. But what you do is it's just beyond belief. It's just beyond belief. I couldn't wait to meet you down there. It's just amazing. But now tell me a little bit about the foundation. Now we're going to talk about you're on a foundation now. Tell us a little bit about it. What do you?
Well, I'm the chairman of the Special Ops Warrior Golf Foundation, or just Special Ops Warrior Golf is a short one that we use, short lexicon that we use. And I'm on the board of a variety of other benevolent organizations, too, that are affiliated with caring for the warriors of special operations. But this one I'm the chairman of, and I'm the co-founder of. What we did was we took a concept. There was a retreat that we did annually that was hosted by a guy named Tom Gates, really great veteran. He was actually a F-4 Phantom fighter pilot in Vietnam, 2 distinguished flying crosses, phenomenal guy that then moved on and ended up becoming a senior agent in the FBI for many, many years, for over 20 years, retired out of that, and then went kind of into the business world in the Tampa area because he was a Tampa boy. And Tom had this, and I've been invited out to it because we always took our wounded warriors out, and I went out because we had a media perspective on it that was helping our Warrior Games the roll up to it. And we hold it in Waterville, Ireland. So it's called the Soft Ireland Golf Retreat. It's actually kind of on my shirt here. And out of that, though, on my last run, right after I retired, General Thomas went with me, my former commander at SOCOM and one of my best friends. And we went out to this event, and it was like, okay, there was more to this than we could do. It was more than just doing the golf in a really beautiful venue, because Waterville, Ireland, one of the most beautiful places in the world. It's west coast of Ireland, which is oddly enough where my mother is from. And just, the whole Irish, kind of venue is just special. Okay. Because the Irish people are so gracious and it's so serene. But on top of that, there were, well-heeled, we'll say, rich businessmen, a lot of them that play the game of golf, that would come to Ireland. And a few of them noticed our guys were there, that we had this set of about 8 wounded warriors, special operators, Green Berets, mostly a couple of SEALs and sprinkled in. And they noticed what we were talking about, and we were talking about the program we were doing there. And they said, hey, how can we get more involved in this? And that was the genesis of an idea. So with Tom Gates, Art Wohlhalter, who's one of Tom's good friends and now has become one of mine, and he's on our board as our secretary-treasurer, former Marine JAG officer, but also a phenomenal businessman himself. We co-founded, the three of us together, the Special Operations Warrior Golf Foundation, to bring these business leaders together in a retreat format at a high-end golf resort, Ireland being one of them that we do at least once, if not twice a year. And then put them together and match them up to build a mentoring relationship with the wounded warrior to help them with their transition. Because one of the gaps that I saw in my years with the Warrior Care program was we're great at getting guys to therapy. We're great at getting them the right prosthetics, wheelchairs, what have you, that our wounded warriors need. We're great at resources all the way through, many benevolent organizations that build homes for these guys. But actually, if you talk to a wounded warrior, the least worried about getting good medical care or mental health care, they're more worried about what they do after they're medically retired or after they retire just in normal progression after they've been banged up pretty good. And what that means, what the next career is, because most of them are getting out in their late 30s, early 40s. And now it's like, okay, how do I take care of my family? Kids are going to college. What do I do? What more can I do? And I've got all these skills and experiences. How do I translate those into the civilian sector? So the idea is to build this mentoring relationship with these senior business leaders who play the game of golf, using the golf course as the venue to get them together. But it's not about golf so much. It's just that golf is a nice place to get to know one another because it's a social sport. So we take these business leaders and we match them up with these wounded warriors. And then we go for a week. We go to Ireland. We got one set up coming up in the summer at Pine Needles, at hopefully COVID not preventing us, which is around Pinehurst in the North Carolina area. And do these. We've got others, Bandon Dunes, Whistling Straits, all kind of in the future for us. So great, well-known golf courses where we bring these business leaders together with these wounded warriors and get them to kind of match up and get to know each other and build the foundation of a mentoring relationship.
That's a fantastic idea. That is an absolutely fantastic idea. That's amazing.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was going to say, we what we're seeing in this is a great responsiveness. Jim, real well from all your experiences with the special ops guys, because you always would come out with us and do things with us during Warrior Games and other things. You know that our guys are a little different. And I don't want to sound elitist, although there's a degree of that to this. Our guys have got amazing experiences, amazing training, were specially selected. And they've also had to bear the greatest brunt of the dangers of this war, to include the injuries. And that's simply because and I'm saying that proportionally. Certainly, if you go numerically, the Army, the Marine Corps has borne significant numbers, as have sailors and airmen, depending on their specialties. But for the most part, it's Army and Marine Corps. And then you get into special ops. And of course, special ops is all the service flavors. When we're talking about the special operations team, we're talking about Green Berets and Rangers, special ops operations aviators, and a lot of support activities in special operations in the Army side, intelligence and communications and other things. And on the Navy side, it's the Navy SEALs and the combat crewmen. On the Air Force side, it's the special tactics guys. It's the PJs and the combat control teams. Those are all, ground, but also the special ops aviators that have to go into these very difficult situations and oftentimes end up hurt. And then, we've got the Marine Corps. Marine special operators really are kind of a combination, a little bit like a Ranger, a little bit like a Green Beret, a little bit like a SEAL. So we've got all the different services are part of special operations community, but each of those nodes or each of those elements and components of special operations in those services are out on the battlefields repeatedly. We're talking about, 8, 9 combat tours are not uncommon in a full career guy. So that kind of exposure, which again, contrast that with your average soldier or sailor or airman or Marine, is very, very different. And on top of that, too, is all the specialized training and screening and education that comes with it. So our guys are getting out usually at the E8 level, if they're enlisted, or 05, lieutenant colonel or higher kind of ranks in the officer side. So they're more senior, more experienced, highly trained, And that's why we want to match them up with senior business leaders that can say, okay, this guy's got something that can really, really help my corporation, really help my company, or corporations or companies I know of, because business guys know other business guys. So that's why the mentoring thing isn't necessarily to hire to their company. It's not about finding a job. It's about finding a career and helping them through a career path.
So I'm on the phone probably at least five times a week with wounded warriors that I've met over the years at Walter Reed, Fort Belvoir, everywhere I go. And we talk, and I get on Zoom calls with them, teach them magic, teach them new memory things, send them my books and things like that. Mm-hmm. So now I could turn some of these guys that are I could turn them onto your foundation. That's not a problem.
Absolutely. Yep. Special operators, that's primary. It's who we service. And that's, that's our requirement is that they come out of our community. But if you're bumping into special operators, the idea is that we try to catch these guys either in their last year of active duty or within 2 years of them becoming a veteran. The reason being is that's typically where they're looking for a job. But if you identified some guy who's been out for, say, 4 or 5 years and is still struggling to figure out what the next step is in his life, we'd happily embrace him. So we're not shutting anybody out. It's just that sweet spot that we find for most that we want to help is in that 3-year path. It's those guys that are closing in on retirement, could be medical retirement, but it's, those they know because they're going through through a process with the service for their medical separation. So then we automatically target. For the guys that have been out for a couple of years, they may still be kind of, and it's a little weird for me. Now I'm not looking the same way. One nice thing about 41 years is that my retirement income and my former income as an active duty colonel is almost the same. So it's kind of nice. The calculus works well. So I wasn't as driven by financial needs as others might be. But when you get out, say you get out as an E8 and you get out at 20 years, the calculus that gives you retired pay only gives you 50% of what you were making, and it's only of your base pay. You don't get all your allowances. Offset your allowances loss a little bit by most of them will get a disability payment out of the VA that's relatively substantial, but it's not what people would think it is. So that kind of complements the money that you lost, but you still taking a pay loss. So here you are, you're a 20-year guy, maybe you're in your late 30s, 38, 39, maybe 40. And you've got, your kids are now hitting late years of high school. You start looking at colleges and applications for that. You got your GI Bill, and maybe you can give that to one of your kids if they go to a GI Bill school. But otherwise, you're looking at the other two that you got in the house, and you're thinking, okay, how do I pay for them? And you're thinking about also what you're going to do. You don't want to sit on the couch or go fishing or just go golfing the rest of your life. You want to do other things, and you're productive. So how do you find that? One of my old mentors used to use purpose and relevance a lot. How are you finding your purpose and staying relevant in society? So it's that kind. Those are the guys that I'm looking for. I'm looking for that guy who's like, okay, I got this uncertainty in my life. Because as I was alluding to, we find that the guys aren't worried about their medical care. They know they're going to get great care out of the VA. VA actually is phenomenal care. They get a bad reputation out of the isolated cases that are picked up by the media. The fact is the VA delivers really good care. And it's there if you properly qualify for it. So all you have to do is go through the disability process and you're going to be qualified to have VA care. Along with that, what TRICARE gives on the outside, what we continue to be able to have as medical insurance provides us great care. So all of that's going to be taken care of. Plus, there's tremendous numbers of benevolent organizations that will help you with care, get you to PTSD counseling or whatever you're trying to deal with. I'm not saying that we don't have people that are still challenged in getting to it. Most of them just aren't asking the right questions or know where to look. The fact is it's out there and it's available. Most of those organizations that provide that type of care are always clamoring for additional clientele. So it's not a matter of a lack of resource. It's a matter of sometimes the guys don't know where to ask or who to ask. It's the anxiety they have is what they're going to do with the rest of their life. That's why we're trying to why we're covering with our foundation that transition notch.
It's amazing. So 41 years you served, and you're serving more now than ever. It's amazing what you still continue to do. It's fantastic, Cary. I really
thank you, Jim. The greatest piece of that, by the way, is that gloves are off. John Stewart, good friend, and I know a mutual friend of yours. John Stewart, and I helped him with his first responders bill the best I could from the outside because I was still wearing uniform. and I'm now on his team. He's helping us on the DoD side with his toxic exposure bill. It kind of got lumped together by the media's burn pit, but it's far more than burn pit. But first time I saw John after I got the uniform off, I come up to the hill to go to a meeting with him, wearing a suit. He goes, "How's it feel, man?" And I go, "Gloves off, baby." It's the beautiful part is that I can be very open and direct now, because DoD, when you're still in the military, you have to be careful as to what you say, because the DoD, appropriately so. I'm not chastising the DoD, but we as officials of the Department of Defense wearing uniform have to be careful that we're not endorsing somebody over somebody else. But now I can do that. I can say there are better organizations than others. There are, without anybody getting bruised or anybody throwing lawsuits at the Department of Defense. They can be mad at me for saying it, but there are better organizations than others. And there are places that you ought to deposit your funds or your volunteerism or whatever you wanted to drop on these guys that are more worthy than others. And there are efforts that are more what the Warriors need. And I like to think I have a good understanding of what the Warriors need, having taken care of so many of them for so many years, that I can help guide now. And I can say it more openly than I could before. So that's the best part of being out of uniform.
Well, we definitely have to talk off camera about that, some of those organizations, because I've had the gloves off ever since I got involved with this. And John, as you met, John Stewart, oh, what a patriot. That guy is just so amazing and he was just on the news I seen the other day talking about what we were just mentioning.
Yeah.
So many great people are coming together, and that's the key here. And it's just amazing, bud. Hey, let me ask you something else. Now, when you the golf that you get involved with, is it just regionally, or could it be anywhere in the country, or?
Yeah, it can be anywhere in the country. And if I were to any of your listeners, there's a couple of things that I need if they wanted to help out Special Ops Warrior Golf. And that would be, one, I need mentors. I need business leaders who want to get involved, who love the game of golf and want to get out with and adopt effectively. It's an adoption process. Adopt a wounded warrior to be their mentor and sponsor them for the retreats. And that's how we fund it. We're a very low cost foundation. We're not looking to make a lot of money. I don't need to draw in hundreds of millions of dollars. Don't need it. I mean, I'd happily take a little of it, but I'd give it most away. I'd give it to other foundations that need it more. The fact is that what I need is to fund these retreats. And I fund these retreats in a very, very smart way. At least I'd like to think so. And that is the mentor sponsors and hosts the golfer. Okay. The wounded warrior golfer. So they're paying for them and they're paying for themselves to come. So a high end one, like going over to Ireland, is basically, about $5,000 for the wounded warrior, and about the same for the business leader that makes the trip. Okay. $10,000 to most of these guys, at least the companies they come out and the incomes they have is pocket lint. So it's not that significant, but it matters to these guys because it builds and forges that relationship, that mentoring relationship. For one of our other retreats, like right now, I've got a retreat that is tentatively going to run in the second week of December. COVID's made that a little more complicated, but I'm still got an $8,000 deficit, $8,000 deficit. So I'm looking for people that want to chip into that and give that. And I'm looking for business mentors that want to come out and play a beautiful track here in the Tampa area called Cypress Run. Actually, it's a course that Brady is a member at. It's his country club, and it's where he trained for that little thing he did with Peyton Manning that a lot of people saw on TV and played with Tiger and Phil. That's where he trained for. And it's also Jan Stevenson, who's on my board of directors, World Golf Hall of Famer, one of my dearest friends. She runs our training at her golf course, Tarpon Woods. She's also a member at Cypress Run, so she comes out and plays golf with the guys. She got a World Golf Hall of Famer who, by the way, her foundation, Crossroads Foundation, one of our partners with Soft Warrior Golf, is all about training wounded warriors and first responders in golf, no matter what their injuries may be, if it's adaptations or whatever. She's actually trained all the way through, like teaching blind veterans how to golf. And Jan's just phenomenal. Was inducted to World Golf Hall of Fame in 2019. And there aren't too many. There's only 165 members of the World Golf Hall of Fame. That's a tough club to get into. So she's absolutely phenomenal. But I'm looking for people that want to get on board, be mentors. I'm looking for funds to cover what we need to cover that particular retreat, because it's a low budget one, because it's local and we're not having to put a lot of expense. Basically, that $8,000 is $1,000 for 8 warriors. And that's what it costs, $1,000 per warrior to do this whole event, because the golf venues are donated to us. The golf instruction is donated to us. All we're paying for is their travel, their hotel room, and their food. That's it. And that's all we try to gather money for. But that's the one in December. Then the one coming up in April in Waterville, Ireland. Those, I still have a few slots where I'm looking for mentors. I've got the Warriors identified, and I need a few $5,000 donors that want, but I'm not just looking for a donor. I'll take money if people, they say, look, I can't afford, or I can't go myself, and I'll pay for the Warrior. That's fine. And I'll get a mentor that the foundation will cover the cost for. But I'd rather have the money and the mentor. I'd rather have that business leader who wants to write a check, but also come himself and give us his time to be with that wounded warrior and get to know him. And I'll tell you, once you're out there with them, you know him well, Jim, because you spent so much time with us. These guys are phenomenal people, and you will make not only a good friend, you'll be impressed with who you're helping, and you'll want to help more of them.
Awesome, 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 Cary, what you're doing. I mean, the retreat. You're funding these retreat. That is fantastic. You got the whole package. I mean, I'm involved with retreats and things like that, where I come and do my cognitive intelligence and everything. And that is what is needed the most, is to get these veterans and these people that need the help in there, and to get them funded, because they can't afford to do it themselves. That's fantastic.
That's right. And again, we're not looking to, we're not trying to feather our nests at our foundation. Our Soft Warrior Golf has only one paid employee. Oddly enough, it's my daughter, and I stayed out of the hiring decision on that. I just had her apply. But board picked her. She's our administrative coordinator. She doesn't make very good living. She's a 22-year-old recent college graduate. We don't pay her well, but she's also always been involved with Warrior Games and other things, and loves our guys. So she does this. She does all the administrative coordinating for our retreats. But we're a low cost, low budget activity that way. We just need the funds to make sure that we can always stage the retreats. But you mentioned something, and there's another way. I mean, I extend this invite to you right now. You want to make the run to Ireland for us? All you got to do is get yourself there. We'll take care of you when you're there. We'll feed you and take care of you. But you get there to the event, and we will have a place for you to spend some time with the Warriors. We've got at every retreat a physical therapist and or doctor who's trained like a spine doctor, who we've got scheduled for our next retreat in Ireland. And we have a psychologist. So the guys have available on site. It's not necessarily part of the retreat format. It's more an availability, and it's also to do a little bit of triage. So as our therapists that are there get to know the wounded warrior, they can identify that, hey, we need to get this guy in for this, or, we need to get him connected to the VA better, or, work those angles for them, or do a little bit with our behavioral health counselor, do a little bit of assessment as to whether or not the guy needs more intensified behavioral health care. So we have that at all our things. And again, that's where, somebody like you who helps them with their memory skills and all their cognitive skills, because you are a cogmentalist, if I remember the terminology, and it is really neat. And what you do helps our guys tremendously. I've watched it. So that kind of thing, and having that on site, we'd love to have that at any one of our venues, be it overseas or be it in states, where the guys get a taste of that and then say, okay, I want to do more of this. So it's exposing our guys to those resources. The other thing is that what's, I'd say, enlightened about our setup of our foundation is all of my board members, for the most part, where I got a few that are just pure business guys, but they are founders or chief executive officers of foundations that already support special operations. We have Brian Bill Foundation. Scott Bill is a Gold Star dad, named his foundation after his son, who was a Navy SEAL killed in combat.
Yep. And
his retreats, his PTSD and TBI supportive retreats are phenomenal. So he and his wife, Jennifer, run these retreats. Been a little more complicated with COVID. I'm on their board of directors as well. They're one of our board members. Operation Healing Forces, Gary Markell, big insurance guy. He has Operation Healing Forces. It helps our guys that are dealing with struggles in their marriages, and they have couples retreats. We have Jan Stevens, I mentioned that with her Crossroads Foundation. I have Sam and Larry Rea from Homes Fit for Heroes, do all kinds of need-based support. I have Jim Regan from Army Ranger Lead the Way, needs-based support of all sorts, therapy, all the way through home builds and helping them get into higher education. He's got a great relationship with Columbia University. Again, others that I'm on boards of that I support, and they are part of our board construct. So the idea is that, again, we don't try to replicate. If we see we got a guy that needs PTSD help, we vector them into the support of the Brian Bill Foundation, for instance, or if they got a spouse trouble, we direct them into Operation Healing Forces. So we have that by virtue of how we're constructed and how we're composed. And so that makes us, again, I'm not having to then raise money to say, okay, give me money because I need to get this guy PTSD support. No, I've got people for that. That's the rest of the board makeup. So I send them to those. What I need the money for is for those foundations. At the same time, I got to have the money to have the venues so that they get together and we can figure out what their needs are. So that's where our costs come into play to sponsor these retreats.
Your passion on this is just through the roof. It's just, I love it. I love the passion you have about all of this. And the Brian Bill Foundation, I know all about that. What they're doing is fantastic. And hey, I got to show you this. Since all of your life, you've been involved with intelligence and special ops. I have something here. In fact, I just created it probably a month ago, Cary. I'm calling it flash memory. It is the absolute key to, I call it my odd skills, observation and deception detection. I took that to a level 10 times higher than the last time you've seen me. And the observation part is this. Now look, this is not a magic trick of any kind. I wish I was there with you in person. I'd use your deck of cards. You mix up the deck of cards like this, Cary. Now watch. I'm going to go through them one at a time, and you're going to tell me to stop anytime you want.
Stop.
You want to stop here or here?
Take the card. Take the one that's still in your left hand.
This one right here? All right, we're going to put it right there. Could you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm going to mix up the cards like this. This is called flash memory. You're not going to believe this. Here we go. There's an ace of diamonds missing, Cary.
Wow.
What the hell is going on with my brain, baby? I can actually teach this now, man. I'm up to 52 cards. I was at 26 just last week. This is what I teach. Okay, I get everybody all motivated and pumped up. You can do the same thing, blah, 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 blah. So I took this is part of deception detection. I call it flash memory. It's part of observation deception detection. I mean, I took this thing to another level, and this is my contribution where I want to help. And it's like, you know, me and you, we've been talking about this forever, ever since West Point. Who was that? Yep. General Ashley, I think it was. Hey, and I didn't know he was involved with it.
General Ashley. That's right.
Yeah.
We caught him in the Tommy Gym. I said, hey, he's the director of DIA. He's the right guy. Now, something else. No, absolutely phenomenal as always, Jim. I mean, you watch it. You and I, we went up. Remember, we went to NICO together too. We talked to TJ Braba and the team there. Again, I mean, they were wowed. And these are guys that have been helping our guys repair our brains. So I think it has so much merit. And it's one of those things that it's far from a parlor trick. We know that. It is a skill set. And you were able to, as you dealt with your own injuries, which weren't that dissimilar to what guys deal with when they're injured in combat. As you went through your own injuries, you retrained your brain. And what you're able to do is unlock power in the brain that we want to be able to find for all our guys, especially those who've had diminished function. TBI is the most pervasive injury in the special operations community. I can say that. I don't think it's necessarily the same in the other forces, but it's certainly true in the special operations community because we've got guys that are just exposed to blast all the time. And so it's often misconstrued as PTSD. Post-traumatic stress is an emotional condition. So, and many of our guys, myself included, have post-traumatic stress. AD, we're not all disabled by it. So it's not necessarily we all have PTSD. But we got a lot of guys that have TBI, myself included. And that's discoverable because they see it in the scans. They can see in your brain that you've had damage, okay? And that's different because that's damaged brain tissue. And when you've had a physical injury, it may affect your emotions, that's why it's often misconstrued as post-traumatic stress disorder. and it can affect you, make you depressed, make you anxious, do a lot of different things to you. But it's damaged brain tissue, and there is not a lot of solution to damaged brain tissue. I mean, there's some, obviously, research shows that with time, there's some healing that's natural. But as your brain ages and you lose the elasticity and that healing principles and factors, it gets harder for that to heal. So our guys are aging, and that's a concern for us. So how do you then work around it? Because most of the things, the damaged brain tissue is damaged brain tissue. So how do you end up working around it? What you do with your cognitive skilling is develop the mechanisms to work around the damage and to be, and maybe even unleash power that you never had that will make you even more functional than you ever were. And that's where it's important. And that's what I want to, I've always been an advocate for that when it came to the healing of our guys, that we got to be willing to, as they say, think out of the box. It's a trite term, but in cliche. But the fact is, we got to be willing to get out of the models of what we think are the right things to do and look at what really works. And some simple things like your type of skills are actually ones that do empower the brain to be more functional.
It's amazing you're talking about. So we just had this conversation last week, Dr. Tom DeGrobber from NICO and myself. We were talking about it. And I tell everybody about the damaged brain tissue. I study the brain now because of this memory ability. I call it, it's all about ESPN, exercise your brain, and of course your body. The S for proper sleep. The P is the most important, positive, 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 positive. It's so important. And then the N for nutrition. And that can help damage brain. Like you work around it. Like you said, you have these new connections, this neuroplasticity. And I even believe in this neurogenesis, birth of new neurons. So this is what I'm into, man. Cary, I took this up 100 notches, man. And I'm telling you, I'm really into it. I'm 67 and I'm like more energetic and my brain is like, I can't shut it off anymore. Just like constantly coming up with new ideas and new tricks and new ideas and new things to create. But what it does is it keeps my brain active. So what does that do? It does two things. It stimulates neurogenesis, neuroplasticity, number one, which is very important. It helps you physically, which helped my injuries. And now I'm bending 60 penny nails on my bare hand. So it makes you like superhuman. But most importantly, what it does, it gives you this self-esteem built, and that's what most of our wounded warriors with PTSD, they need that self-esteem built up again. And that's kind of what I contribute, and that's what I like, and that's what I'm all about. And I just want to get more and more and more. I'm creating all these new things every day. This COVID thing actually helped me because I probably would have not invented half the things I've invented in the last 6 months. It's crazy. But now it's time to unleash this to the world. And that's why it's always great, hanging out and talking with people like yourself who've done so much for our military. And I personally thank you for everything. My gosh, you've been decorated. You're so humble too. You're not even talking about the awards you received and everything else. That is just it's just amazing. You're just amazing, a humble guy. And that's what I like. But so the first time I met you, you and your daughter and your wife were taking me for lunch at West Point. You didn't even know who I was. It's like, you're such a cool guy, man.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Humility is, hopefully I display that, because the fact is that I am most humbled by the young warriors who signed up. My son is one of those. He's a sergeant first class. He's at Fort Bragg right now. He's already had 5 combat tours. He joined in 2007 in the midst of this war, knowing what it meant and knowing that it meant going to combat and going to combat repeatedly. So he knew he was risking his body, life, and limb. And he did it. And there's so many other sons and daughters of America who did that. I was a professional soldier in 1978. I grew up doing it. That's all I ever wanted to be. And so, the decorations and things that we get as a matter of course, and seniority guides those things. And, you go and you get one and that kind of thing. So they're less significant to me than they are that I would have the opportunity to lead just phenomenal young men and women in an endeavor to support not only the security of our nation, but also the security of nations out there that cannot protect themselves. So it was a great, great honor for me. But the sons and daughters of America that signed up in this past 19 years, that knew what it meant, that risked it all, and many of them that lost, it might just be a part of their soul, a lot of their emotions, and dealing with the moral injury, or they're dealing with the loss of friends, and and then those that have had been maimed themselves, or and even more so the families that lost their loved ones that served. That's who I most admire, and those are the ones that are most worthy of our respect. And it's one of the reasons why I sanction every group I talk to. I just did a speech the other night at a veteran event for Veterans Day, and I told them, I said, look, what I need from you is to get involved, stay involved. This nation, no nation takes better care of its veterans and its warriors than this nation does. Don't you hear a lot of stuff in the media, and every once in a while there's a hiccup somewhere at some VA hospital, someplace somebody didn't get everything they wanted. But those are few and far between compared to the millions that are well supported by our system. The fact is that we have an incredibly gracious and giving nation that takes care of its warriors, and the benevolent organizations like mine and others. They're out there to do that. We have a cornucopia of support that's unbelievable and unmatched in the world. And Jim, especially from your exposure to Invictus Games, nobody, I mean, the UK maybe to some degree, but nobody delivers like our nation does. And so what I ask people to do is get involved. And one is recognize that our government can't do it all. The VA can't do it all. It's got limitations. It's a government agency. It's a bureaucracy. Whatever we do, but I tell people, support politicians that support Veterans Administration and support the activities that support our vets and benefits for our vets. And then on top of that, I say, get involved with benevolent organizations that help our wounded warriors, veterans, and families. Get involved with them. Give them your money. If you got money to give them your time, give them both, but get involved. Because that's how we take care of our people. That's the best thing we can do. These kids that served this past 20 years, it's a whole generation that's gone to war repeatedly. Now let's view this. And I don't mean this in any disparaging way, because I have nothing but the greatest respect and honor for our World War II veterans. I mean, and our Korea War veterans. Okay. But most of them, I mean, you were a Band of Brothers guy. Say you got to remember the show Band of Brothers, and you jumped in with Easy Company. You hit combat June 6th, 1944. The war was over May 7th, 1945. It was 11 months. It was over. And in the midst of that, you maybe had a few weeks of really sustained high-end combat that was very dangerous. Don't get me wrong. Those guys in Easy Company, they had the D-Day stuff, and they had a few weeks of that. And then they had Holland, and they had the Battle of the Bulge. I mean, they had some weeks of real intense combat. But after they got through those weeks, they were done. And most of them were young men when they joined. And then when they left, they were still very young men. We've got guys that joined at 20 years old. My son is in that category. Joined it right after high school, and then are now, after 5-6 combat tours, in their late 30s, early 40s, and now really grown. They've grown up at war. This is a completely different paradigm than our previous veteran, and they have sustained this on behalf of this nation. A volunteer force. They weren't conscripted. They weren't drafted into the service. They signed up, they volunteered, and they went to war. And they went to war over and over again. This is a unique set. And we owe them all the support we can give them.
Fantastic. Cary, fantastic. Great words, man. You're amazing, man. I'm telling you, you're the most passionate guy. I just love you. I just love hanging out with you. This was something I wanted to do for the longest time, get on a conversation with you. And please, this is just, please tell General Thomas I said hi as well. I remember meeting him. He's a cool guy, and that's your friend.
Sure will.
You guys.
He's on my board. He's on my board of directors. He's also the chairman of Special Ops Warrior Foundation that does scholarships. They're not affiliated with us, but they do scholarships for the children of the special operations, the fallen special operators out there. They do college scholarships for all of them. They're an amazing organization. I would encourage anybody to support them. But he is also on our board as a Special Ops Warrior Golf because he loves the game and he loves our guys. So, but we got other guys, Command Sergeant Major McCauley. I think you remember him from Special Ops. Yeah. He is also on our board. I mean, we've got some just great Special Ops leaders that are behind this effort. So
as soon as this COVID's over, I'm going to get my butt down there and see you guys in person again. Cary,
sounds like a plan, brother.
Thank you for everything, and you're the best. And please tell everybody I said hi. You got a beautiful family. You got 4 kids like I do. I think 3 daughters, and then your lovely wife, and it's just amazing. You're just a real guy. You know what I mean? That's what I like about you. You're real. You're true. And what you've done for this country and what you continue to do is just beyond belief. It's just amazing. Thank you so much for joining us and hang out here. I want to talk to you for another second off camera.
Sure will.
Cary Harbaugh, everybody. Check him out, and we'll put your foundation up on the site. All right, buddy.
Thanks.
Jim Karol and Friends is brought to you by Signal Relief, the drug-free pain relief patch. Please visit signalrelief.com and use our promo code MEMORY for an exclusive offer only for our Jim Karol and Friends listeners.